वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुता पदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं चाक्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं त्वं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां
Yeah, Prabhu, I'm ready.
गगन ललिता
Am I good to go, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandapratam. Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, Prabhu. Just 1 minute, Prabhu. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya on a Saturday morning. We're already in June. This is June 1st. Today we have the privilege of having His Grace Sundar Shyam Prabhu. After a long time, he's joining up in Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. I'm very super excited to have this association. And he will be continuing from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.9.4, which talks about the characteristics of Jadaparatha. Over to you, Prabhu, and pranams.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much for this wonderful morning and association with all nice Vaishnavas. It's always good to talk about Srimad Bhagavatam right in the morning. It can change your consciousness so much. Okay, so let's offer our prayers. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadadi Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namashe Purusham Tvadyam Ishwaram Prakrite Param Alaksham Sharvabhutanam Antarbahiravastitam Maya javanika jannam ajnadokshajam avyayam na lakshashe modadrisha nato natyadaro yata tata paramahamsana munina mamalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanartham katam pashyemasi striyaha Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankaja Maline Nama Pankaja Netraya Namashe Pankajangraye. Hare Krishna. So welcome all for today's morning Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So today the verse is given to me as you see on screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhu.
Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So we're going to read from 5th canto, chapter 9, text 4. Okay, so this is about life and realizations from Jada, right? So we will try to see how much we can understand out of this sloka. So this sloka is not in the standard format, so, you know, we may not be able to sing this sloka, but we may just read through this sloka. Okay, so reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.9.4. Tasyapi hava atmajasya vipraputra snehanubadda mana asamavartanat samskaran yatopadesham vidadana upanitasya cha punasaucha achamanadin karmaniyaman anabhipretanapi samashikshayad anusistena hi bhavyam pituhu putreneti. Translation. The Brahmana's father's mind was always filled with affection for his son, Jada, who was Bharata Maharaj in his previous to previous life. Therefore, he was attached to Jada. Because Jada was unfit to enter the Grihastha ashrama, he simply executed the purificatory process up to the end of Brahmacharya ashrama. Although Jada was unwilling to accept his father's instruction, the Brahmana nonetheless instructed him in how to keep clean and how to wash, thinking that the son should be taught by the father. Okay? Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jada was Bharat Maharaj in the body of a Brahmana, and he was outwardly conducting himself as if he were dull, deaf, dumb, and blind. Actually, he was quite alert within. He knew perfectly well all the results of fruitive activities and the results of devotional service. Okay, that is significant. In the body of a Brahmana, Maharaj Bharata was completely absorbed in devotional service within. Therefore, it was not at all necessary for him to execute the regulative principles of fruitive activity. As confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Swanutta tasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. So this sloka is Ataha Pumbir Dudashreshta Varnashama Vibhagashaha. So it talks about importance of Varnashama. In that sloka this comes. Okay. One has to satisfy Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the perfection of regulative principles of relative activity. Besides that, it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma Swanata Tista Pumsan Vishwaksena Katashuya Notpadayate yadi radim shrama eva hi kevalam. So now let us look at the meaning of this sloka. Dharma, duties, executed by men regardless of occupation are only much less labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. Right? These karma kanda activities are required as long as one has not developed Krishna consciousness. So now he's talking about Vaidiha Bhakti transition to Raganuga Bhakti or to higher stages of Bhakti of Bhava Bhakti or Prema Bhakti. Right? If one is developed in Krishna conscious, there is no need to execute prior regulative principles of Karma Kanda. Srila Madhavendra Puri said, "Oh, regulative principles of Karma Kanda, please excuse me. I cannot follow all these regulative principles, for I am fully engaged in devotion service." He expressed the desire to sit down he expressed a desire to sit somewhere beneath the tree and continue chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Consequently, he did not execute all regulative principles. Similarly, Haridas Thakura was born in a Mohammedan family. From the very beginning of his life, he was never trained in Karma Kanda system. But because he was always chanting the holy name of Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as Nama Acharya, the authority in chanting the holy name. As Jada Bharat Maharaj was always engaged in devotion service within his mind. Since he had executed the regulative principles continuously for 3 lives, he was not interested in continue to execute them, although his Brahmana father wanted him to do so. Okay, so let's dwell upon some key understandings out of this purport, what Prabhupada is trying to tell here. So Jada Bharat, obviously that was not his name, right? Bharata was his name. So the word Jada was added to him. So Jada means what? Dull-headed, something like a stone. So because he behaved in that manner, they nicknamed him, right? Called him Jada Bharat. Right? Jada means something who was ignorant of everything and anything like that, right? But his father was very much interested in uplifting him. He wanted to teach him Veda Shastra. He wanted to teach him many things. So he tried all his efforts. Okay. Now let's just rewind back something in terms of the life of Bharat Maharaj, because it has a context as to why this is happening now. Okay. So we all know Bharat Maharaj, the ruler of the entire world. He comes in the lineage of Swayambhu Manu, son of Rishabdev, right? He is the first son. Now, Bharata Maharaj has great credentials to his name. One, as he was a virtuous king, practicing devotion service to the best possible extent. And he discharges duty. If you take the Varnashrama system of Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Brahma Sannyasa, he followed the system. He practiced, and then he led the kingdom for some period of time. When time was due, he let go of his responsibilities and he left the family, renounced. See, renouncement is an important aspect in devotion service. He renounced and he migrated to the forest, to a secluded place, so that he can practice bhakti. And the rules and regulations he practiced was very intense, as specified in the Veda Shastra. And he was practicing bhakti, and he was in the stage of bhava bhakti, right? So what are the stages that we have in bhakti scenario? So we first start with the Shraddha, faith, right? Then after that, we go to the stage of Sadhu Sangha. So once we have faith about this entire spiritual life, our relationship with the Lord, then we want to know more about it. Our inquisitiveness generates. So then we want to go to Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha means association of devotees, right? When we associate with devotees, we learn more. We learn to understand and realize the subject more deeper, right? Then automatically what does that? It increases the love for Godhead, and we perform devotion service, bhajana kriya, right? We perform nice devotion service. We may take some service in the temple or in the center or in your preaching groups or wherever it may be. And then you may sing, you may chant nicely, you can order all our performance of devotion service, right? Now, by practice of devotion service nicely, what do you move from bhajana kriya? You move to the stage of anartha nivritti, right? In the anartha nivritti state, what are you doing? All unwanted attachments. I don't want this, I don't want this. I want focus on bhakti. So you have more focus on bhakti. When your focus on bhakti becomes constant, you become very steady in your bhakti, and that's called nishta bhakti, right? So from a nishta bhakti, when you practice nishta bhakti, steady state bhakti for a long period of time, you get taste, ruchi, you attract ruchi, right? You get taste for Krishna. I want to be with him. I want to talk about his glories. I want to talk about his pastimes. I want to sing for him. I want to do something for his pleasure, right? So what we had attachment in the material life, we move towards attachment to Krishna now. Krishna and service to Krishna for the pleasure of Krishna. That is asakti. So from asakti, you reach the state of bhava. Bhava is love of Godhead. Now in bhava state, what happens? In bhava state, you see that you are going to see the Lord. The Lord will actually manifest for you in the bhava state. And that's the state Bharata Maharaj was in. Right? Now imagine from that state, Bharata Maharaj fell down. Why? Because his attachment, this asakti, had some mishra in it, some disturbance in it. And in the bhava state, even though we are calling it as he saw the Lord and things like that, but still he had attachment to the deer, which he thought was probably, would be eaten by a tiger or something else or what it may be. And then he developed attachment and compassion to the deer, and that costed him a fortune. So from that state of bhava, you see in the bhava state one can fall down. From the state of bhava, he fell down because he was thinking of deer. And Krishna says in the 8th chapter that whatever you remember at the time of death, you will attain that state. So he remembered the deer and he took the deer's body. Okay, so that's what happened. Bharata Maharaj became a deer, and from the deer, Krishna was very merciful to him. He made Bharata Maharaj, who was in the body of a deer, to realize his past life. That way, the deer was very, very clear. Oh, I should not do this mistake. He just went to a place where I think it is the Pulastya Ashrama, and it ate grass, and then it kept on remembering the Lord. And in remembrance of the Lord, the deer left the body. And then the next life was Jada Bharat. Right? So, in the Jada Bharat state, look at this. We hear from Bhagavad Gita, Suchinam Srimatam Gehe. Right? That means an unsuccessful yogi, Krishna says an unsuccessful yogi will be born either in a family of aristocracy or in the family of nice Vaishnavas or Brahmanas, where he can continue to practice his devotion service. Because he needs to achieve that perfection. So that's what happened to Bharat Maharaj. Right? He was born to a nice Brahmana family. That's what it says. It says that his father was a great Brahmana who was practicing all these aspects of, Shruti, all the Shruti mantras and things like that. And then he was leading his life. So Jada Bharat was born. Actually, this Brahmana had 2 wives. The first wife had 9 sons, and the second wife had 1 daughter and 1 son. And Jada Bharat was the wife of the son of the second wife, and that's the connection he had. Okay, but his father was very much affectionate, and then he wanted to teach Jada Bharat all the principles of Veda Shastra, right? And so he was putting all his effort, but Jada Bharat was in a state of devotion. As Bharat Maharaj, he was already in a bhava state. Now he is perfecting this bhava state. That means he's already reached higher platforms of devotion. So he was not interested in these rules and regulations of the Veda Shastra. So what he was trying to do, though he was aware of it, he did not want to get entangled into those activities because he was practicing devotion. He was doing smaranam at all points in time about the Lord. So he was in a very, very higher state of consciousness. Hence, he was disinterested in whatever the principles that his father taught. Right? It says, karma kanda director was not developed in Krishna conscious. So, one who is not developed in Krishna conscious, you have to do karma kanda. So, for example, in 6th chapter also we see, right? Nishkama karma yoga. So, Nishkama karma yoga, he develops and then he migrates into yoga rudha state, right? So, where his performance of devotion service are in a much, much stronger, in a much, much steady state manner. Right? Now, the Veda Shastras, if you look at it, right, the Veda Shastras deal with this karma kanda activities also. Veda Shastra deal with materialistic activities also. It explains about 3 gunas. It has all subject matters, right? Now, can we reject the Veda Shastra? No, but Krishna is Veda. Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivista matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha. Vedescha sarves ahameva vedyam. Krishna says, I am the Veda. So you can't ignore Veda. But what do? You take the Vedas constitute the other subject matter of devotion service onto the Lord. So you take that portions of it, which is in the higher platform, and start to practice it. And that's the key here, right? So hence, if you take text 2.45 in Bhagavad Gita, right? What Krishna says, Krishna tells Arjuna, don't get into these rules of this Veda, right? It says, Nishtraigunya Bhavarjuna. Go cross beyond the three modes of nature, and that is devotion service. Right? So you can see Krishna giving Arjuna also that kind of instruction. Okay. So now let's understand the subject further. Now, so we talked about the performance of devotion service, and that's what was in the heart of Jadabharat. So when his father was trying to teach him, he was disinterested. He says, I don't want to do that again because I have practiced Bhava Bhakti in my previous lives, and why will I practice that Bhakti again in this current life? So he was not interested something in lower forms of practices. And hence, even though his father used to teach him, he taught him all the Brahminical qualities like Saucham, like Arjavam, like Titikshvam. All these things, even though he was taught, but he showed no interest. Simple thing, it says, if you read the next sloka, it will say that his father would teach him, you should wash your hands and legs before you perform these activities, but and then do it, then he would do the opposite way, right? So like that, he demonstrated jada. He demonstrated ignorance at all points in time. As a result, what has happened, his father, when he left this world, right, he tried his level best and said, okay, I can teach only this much. But a time came, his father was most a family man and things like that. Death took him, devoured him. We may forget death, but death won't forget us, right? So death devoured him, and father died. So when his father died, automatically he came under the shelter of his other, his mother also died. After his father died, his mother also died. And his mother handed over Jadabharat to the hands of his first wife. Now, the first wife had 9 children. And then those 9 children, what they decided, they said, hey, you're Jada. What's the point in teaching you any of the Shastras? So we will not teach you any of those things. And they engaged him in menial services, right? They put him, for example, in the farmlands, they used to put him for scarecrow, right? He'll sit and then, chase the birds and things like that. And they did not teach him any Shastric knowledge. And then they gave him very poor treatment, spoiled food, things like that they gave him. And he just ignored all of them, but he demonstrated as if he doesn't know anything. But he was always in the state of chanting the holy name of the Lord, remembering the Lord, and then he was perfecting devotion service in his heart. So Jadabharat was internally in the state of prema. He was not in the state of bhava, right? So we'll analyze more. What's the difference between bhava state and the prema state in the further discussions that we will talk about, right? Now, some examples that I can think of for you is Sukadeva Goswami, right? So if you look at Sukadeva Goswami, after 16 years when he was born, he was in the state of Atmarama, right? And then he didn't want the influence of any of the material energies and things like that. And then internally he was Atmarama, right? You take examples in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time is Haridas Thakura. Haridas Thakura was chanting all the time. He was not following these regulative principles and things like that. Then we can have examples of Paramananda Puri, right? So like that, these are great examples that you can think of. Now, so the question is, if Bharata Maharaj was in the Bhava state, what did we talk about? In the Bhava state, that one can see the Supreme Lord. So if Bharat Maharaj was in the Bhava state, and if he has seen the Supreme Lord, why does he fall down? Right? In the Bhava state, we talked about there is a lot of ecstasy, right? There is a lot of ecstasy, and he's performing all the principles as mentioned in the Shastra, and he's perfected his life. He's also renounced. He's no more attachment. So his stage of bhava he reached. But at that stage, after seeing the Lord, why does one fall down? So this is very, very important to understand, right? Now, one thing that you can understand is when there are anarthas in our heart, it will cause disturbance, right? Now, there are 2 aspects. One is the sinful activities that one performs, and one is offenses that one does, right? Now, what's the aspect of sinful activities? Now, Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavatam that the sinful activities, the seeds of sinful activities can be roasted and destroyed by performance of devotion, right? So even though we perform sinful activities, but our devotion practice will easily eradicate them. No issues, right? But when we perform certain offenses, right, that lead to anarthas, right? And that offenses, they do not go away by performance of devotion so easily. They remain in the heart in the dormant state, right? And it can carry forward from life after life. And that is a big problem that we will have, right? So in the bhava state, you see these offenses and the anarthas are not fully eradicated. And they may cause us to fall in trap with illusion, right? And this is very dangerous, right? So now let's look at what happened to Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, even though he was in the bhava state, he still somehow got attracted and showing compassion to the deer, right? So this is how our offenses will cause difficulties for us at the time of liberation or at the time of experiencing love of Godhead. So one has to be very, very careful with respect to offenses. Offenses are very dangerous. Mahaprabhu talk about mad elephant offense, right? So even from a bhava state, one can fall down is what we should understand. Now, after bhava state, you get the prema state. In the prema state, there is no offenses, there is no aparadha, there is no anartha, nothing. We're completely pure. It's fully love of Godhead, and then one go back home back to Godhead. So this is the situation now. Right? There's a difference between bhava state and the prema state. Now, Jada Bharat was very clear. I don't want to commit these mistakes that I did in the previous births. Now, let's look at this way. What is the role of the Lord here? The Lord wants to purify us. So he wants to give opportunity after again and again. So he wants to give the right opportunity. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Name Bhakta Pranashyati. I never, let go of my devotees. I give them the shelter and give all the support that is required. Right? So Krishna wants to purify him further. So even though he remembered the deer and he fell down, but Krishna was merciful. What did he do? He ensured that he remembered his previous life, remember his previous activities. So as a deer also, he was performing the right things to do. And as a result, he came to state of Jada Bharat. In Jada Bharat, Krishna again was merciful that he was able to make him remember his previous life, that he did not want to commit those mistakes. Right? So he's not interested in any of these, useless labor and following these regulated principles. And he's practicing devotion to his best possible extent within his art, right? And that's the glory of Jada Bharat. So Jada Bharat is almost in a state like an avadut. So you can look at it like that. So Krishna motivates his devotees to go to higher and higher platforms to become pure in his devotion and then reaches lotus feet. So this is very, very important, how the Lord deals with his devotees and how devotees can also progress in their devotion service, right? Okay. Now I will talk about nectar of devotion. See, in the nectar of devotion, there are Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Rupa Goswami talks about, there are 4 sections he talks about in the nectar of devotion. One, in the first section, he talks about gentle bhakti. Then he talks about Vaidiha Bhakti, right? So practicing of bhakti under rules and regulations. Then migrating, once we completely do rules and regulation based bhakti and slowly we get attachment to Krishna, and then we are very steady state, then we slowly migrate towards Raga Bhakti. Then he talks about section about Bhava Bhakti, then there's a section about Prema Bhakti, right? So you see in this sections also, let me just yeah. So in the sections of bhakti also, in the state of bhava and prema, Rupa Goswami talks about the 6 characteristics of devotion service, right? In the first character of devotion service, it talks about what is called as Kleshagni, right? In Kleshagni, what happens? It is a preliminary stage that one goes through where the difficulties that are one faced by the material nature are completely relieved. That means he comes out of the platform of influence of the material energy, Trigunas. So that is Kleshagni, right? Then the realization about auspiciousness, how bhakti is auspiciousness. That means it's the beginning of, we say, no, for example, in Premadhuni, we say Shubha Mangala Arati, right? Right? That Shubha Mangala Arati, that means everything is auspiciousness starting with Mangala Arati. So that's how we, talk about in Premadhuni. So he says, bhakti as such is very auspicious. He says, Shubhada. Now, there are other characters of bhakti which talks about bhakti will make one not to go after moksha. See, when someone says, okay, I will worship Krishna because I'll get liberation, that means there is a profit mentality or a fruitive mentality in why he's practicing Krishna. Because if tomorrow Lord Shiva says, okay, I have the empowerment to give moksha, then you will see there will be many parties who will move from Krishna to Shiva because he also gives liberation, right? So because Krishna is not the object, but the liberation is the object, hence that will happen. But pure bhakti will make you cross beyond it. What does it do? Moksha becomes not the point or subject matter, but the concept of liberation will go away, but the concept of loving devotion service of Lord will increase more. So that means we are not performing bhakti because I will get liberated, I'll go back home. I am performing devotion because I will please my Lord. So pleasure to the Lord will become the key rather than anything else. That means, you see, it's called moksha lagutakrit, where we go to the highest status of bhakti, right? Then Krishna says that Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. He says Sudurlabha. Bhakti is Sudurlabha. It's very rare. So Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti is very rare. It cannot be achieved by anyone. So one can be achieved by Bahunam Janmana, after many, many births, that one can achieve that state, right? So you see, all these things, they lead to the aspects of the transcendental platform and great attraction to Krishna, right? And Lord Krishna is also attracted by the living entity when he practices pure bhakti. So hence Krishna says, Name Bhakta Pranashyati. That means Krishna says, I love my devotees. I am attracted by him. So the Lord does the extra effort to show that causeless mercy on him, right? Now, in the whole process, you see, we have to be very careful with anarthas, right? With offenses. One set of offenses that we read in every day during Mangalarati time or in the morning time is the 10 offenses to the holy name. Okay, so that's the first stage, then 10 offenses to the holy name. But, devotees need to be very careful with offenses. They cannot commit any offenses. Because offenses, they cause anarthas in a prolonged manner of time. So devotees must be very careful in the devotion service, right? Now, I'll give you an example. We say Krishna is like 1,000 moons. We say Gaura Chandra. We link the moon to the beauty of Lord Gauranga, like that. Of course, the beauty of moon cannot no match to the beauty of Gauranga, but for analogy's sake, we say that, right? Gaura Chandra and things like that. But if you see the moon from a distance, you'll see the moon in the night as a full moon is a very nice, bright, white, very attractive, cool breeze, and all those things. But when you see that moon with a telescope, you'll see there are spots in that moon, right? So this is the tendency that devotees like us, we develop, right? Even though everything is fine, we have the tendency to criticize, to find fault and things like that. And that can become, offenses and lead to anarthas at the appropriate time, right? And maybe Bharata Maharaj, it says, the sloka says that he committed some offense somewhere in his previous lives, and that offense of Bharata Maharaj led to anarthas in this current life. So what sort of anartha? Even though he was practicing Bhava Bhakti, what happened to him? He saw the deer, and even though he was attracted to Krishna, that compassion aspect he kept on the deer, right? So, I mean, you see, how is it possible? Someone in Bhava state, how can he even do that? So you may be wondering, how can this happen? So this is the root cause, right? So we say prarabdha karma, right? Prarabdha karma, there are two times. One is auspicious prarabdha karma and inauspicious. So both exist, right? And they would carry forward. So that's why we devotees must be very, very careful with offenses. And if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are many, many sections, many, many chapters dedicated for offenses, and Mahaprabhu insists that devotees must not perform offenses, right? So as a deer, he was able to realize this. Oh, this mistake is I made, that I cannot, do anything else. How can I be, even though I was practicing with a lot of renunciation, I came to the forest and I was alone. And how come I did? So this is very important. This is another important point that you have to understand. See, Bharat Maharaj was alone in the forest, right? And there's another cause for him to, move away from the core aspects of devotion. Now, if we are with association of devotees, you will see that, our fallen can be sort of arrested, that we may take the help of other devotees. That's why sadhu sangha is so powerful that it can remove one from those anarthas. So we have to always be in association of devotees. Hear from them Bhagavad Gita. Hear from them the glories of the Lord. And then always be in the mode of repentance for our mistakes rather than become aggressive and defend ourselves for our mistakes, right? So this way, one can practice and improve his life better and better, right? So Bharat Maharaj had nice education and all the shastras, everything, and then he learned everything. He was practicing them nicely. Then he attained a dear birth and then Jada Bharat. In Jada Bharat, he knew all these things because the Lord made him to remember. So he straight away started to practice Prema Bhakti. You can see that in the instructions that he was giving to Ravguna, King Ravguna, right? And he very talked about very high subjects. So a king of that stature, he understood that I'm not talking to ordinary guy. He came down from his palanquin and then fell at the feet of Jadabharat, right? And look at his state. Krishna says, "Do not fear, right? I protect you." So when once he was doing the scarecrow business, some dacoits, what did they do? They came and took hold of Jadabharat, and then they wanted to offer it to Kali, and then they were to chop his head. He was completely not bewildered by any of those acts. So, but Mother Kali is so worried that how can a great Vaishnava be offended like this? So she manifested out of the deity, and then she immediately killed all those dacoits, and then protected Jadabharat. So that means from this we can understand that we can be protected from the greatest of dangers at any point in time by practice pure devotion service. So pure devotion service can be practiced by continuously taking shelter of a Uttama Bhakta devotee. Srila Prabhupada is Uttama Bhakta devotee. So you take shelter of him, follow his books, read his books, take his instruction, and then be very careful while dealing with devotees, no offensive, right? And that way we can develop our consciousness more and more, stronger and stronger, right? Now, coming to the Vedas, right? We talked about Vedas. Vedas is Supreme Lord himself, right? So it is important that we migrate from one state to another state. So the Vedas have three sections: Karma Kanda section, Jnana Kanda section, Upasana Kanda section, right? You see, many of these translatives, so-called spiritualists, they get stuck between the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. They're not able to practice the Upasana Kanda, right? But you see the mercy of our Guru, that he is able to navigate us to Upasana Kanda. He is able to make us practice bhakti and always remember Krishna, right? The 9 steps in devotion service. So that is very important. So understanding Guru and Guru's instruction is very, very important. Now, while we do that, the Vedas are Shruti mantras. That means you cannot, they are the Shruti, you cannot find fault, criticize the Vedas, right? So the Vedas have many sections that one can take up to progress in the devotion service, like Karma Kanda, Jnana, Upasana Kanda. So like that they can progress. So according to one's level of devotion practice, they can take up that section of devotion and then they can practice, right? And that's what he was doing here. So you see, he says, I cannot follow all these regulative principles, for I'm fully engaged in devotion service. He expressed a desire to sit somewhere beneath a tree and continue chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. That was his desire, right? His desire was not to, his father was trying to teach him Gayatri mantra, was trying to teach him, regulative principles. All these. He was not interested in all these things because he was in a higher state. And when we go to higher state, we can leave lower state. Now, for example, you have to understand discharge of devotion service and distinction, right? So once on a bhakti platform, you need to understand the Vedic principles, and we should understand and we should mature in our spiritual practices accordingly, right? That's the kind of contextual message that this purport is trying to give us, right? Now, I'll give you some examples. For example, Gauda Sampradaya. Now, we have Baldev Vidya Bhushan, who's talking about three kinds of devotees, right? He talks about the first stage of called as Sanishta devotee. Then he talks about the extreme end, that is Niroprakrita devotees. Then in between, right, we have Parinishta devotees, right? So what is the difference? So for example, in Shanishta devotees, you see that devotees, they want to follow all the regulative principles. They want all the rules that the Vedic principles are adopting. And then they don't have any excuses. So they want to do, but somehow you see there is Mishra Bhakti. There is some attachment. There's some attachment to Veda Shastra, that's what they want to practice, and there's attachment to material activities also. So you see there is a Mishra in what they're trying to do. So that's mixed kinds of bhakti. That is the first level, right? In the Parinishta state, what happens? One comes to the higher platform of bhakti, right? He is aware of the entire principles. He is aware of his position. He is aware of his relationship with the Lord. And he let goes of all his attachment to material life, right? He may live in the material world. He may use some of the material things, but he is not attached to it. That means presence or absence of anything, be it subtle or gross, does not affect his consciousness, right? So that's called no attachment. So in a Parinishta state, he is not attached, right? He is not attached to positions. Even if you, for example, if someone, chastise him, he's not affected by his awe and reverence and respect and all these things, right? Now, then we can equate such devotees like Mahajanas, right? They act as role models. So, for example, you take Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj, he was in the state, and then his practice of devotion was such that he was being a great role model for us, so that we can look at him and we can practice, right? Janaka Maharaj, you can look at him and you can practice. So that's very important. So, like these devotees acted as great role models, and even though they are not required to perform the action of a king or any of their duties, even though they're not required to perform the prescribed duties, still they practiced in order to role model to us, right? Okay. In the third stage of devotion is called Niroprakshita devotee. So here you can look at examples like devotees who generally don't want to follow any of the system because they're beyond this regulative process. Regulative process are given so that people have a guideline. How do I practice devotion, right? Because they have a guideline to practice devotion, they're able to follow those rules. If there's no rules, then you will see devotees, they misuse, right? So that's the initial stage. But once they cross that stage, then you see they're beyond these rules and regulations, right? For example, the best example is Avaduta. We say Avaduta, right? Sukadeva Goswami was an Avaduta. He didn't follow any of these rules. In fact, he would not even wear a dress. So he was beyond all these things. Then we see Nityananda Prabhu was an Avaduta, right? So You see, they're very, very advanced in their devotion practice. Their state of consciousness, their awareness is really, really phenomenal, right? Their renouncement, if you look at the way they renounce, the renouncement is also not artificial. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says it's not about externals, it's about internally that we renounce, right? So these advanced devotees, they're very renounced uh, not artificially, but truly in their consciousness, right? So this is how one has progressed in the practice of devotion service. Now, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, we also have, I'll give you some examples of Grahastha devotees, right? So now we see there are a lot of Grahastha devotees who practiced devotion. So these three stages we talked about existed even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, right? So we, apart from having Grahastha devotees, like for example, we have Murari Gupta, Kolavecha Sridhar, all these devotees, even though they were Grihasthas, they were performing great devotion, no attachment, pure devotion service. And, they were completely focused on service to the Lord and things like that. Now, apart from that, we also had sannyasi devotees in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, right? So, for example, we had devotees like Sarup Damodar. Sarup Damodar was sannyasi devotee, Paramananda Puri. Then we had some of these Babajis that who took constant association of Mahaprabhu. So they were also practicing. That means in the sannyasi stage also we had devotees who practiced exemplary devotees. In the Grihastha stage we had Ramananda Rai, who practiced exemplary devotion. So like that we had. That means the point to understand is that irrespective of the ashram, Mahaprabhu is concluding that one can perform pure devotion service, right? It's all about evolution of the consciousness. Okay. So the conclusion is bhakti should not be external. Bhakti should be internal, right? We should focus on our consciousness, what we think, how we think, what are we thinking all the times. So performance of devotion service to the Supreme Lord is more important. Being offenseless in our life is more important. So when we do all these things, you see that we practice devotion in a wonderful manner. And that's what Jada was doing. So Jada was not interested to get into all these practices. He was clear. He was in the prema state. And, the result was that he went back home, back to Godhead at the end of this life. Right? So I will end my class here. If there's anything, questions, we can take it up. We can see how best we can answer those questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful class. You just covered, quite a lot of points were covered in this. So you talked about how actually Bharata was in the Bhava stage, and you explained about the 9 stages of bhakti. You talked about how Jada Bharata was not interested in any of the regulative and normal karma kanda activities, as he was already in that stage, and he was working towards perfection. So he wanted to be in the perfect state of prema stage, and you very nicely explained the performing the various services should be done. All these services should be done more internally, not externally, and we should always be remembering the Lord, which is very important. You just talked about took the examples of Haridas Thakur and Paramananda Puri. You had their examples in this as well. And why did the actual fall happen? You very nicely explained the point that there are two kinds of thing, which is what is sinful activities. They could be eradicated, but offenses, they are the ones which which even in the bhava stage you can't take it out. So you have to be very, very careful not to perform any offenses. And you talked only the prema stage is where you won't commit offenses as such. You took you just referred to nectar of devotion, where you talked about. Just 1 minute, Prabhu, I'll mute the lines. Yeah, so we just referred the nectar of devotion. You talked about the 4 stages of bhakti, which is We talked about the Vaidya Bhakti, then Raga Bhakti, Bhava, and Prema
Mandal
Bhakti.
Bhakti, Vaidya Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, Prema.
Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. Yeah, you talked about that. And you also talked about pure Bhakti is not to, heading towards or craving for liberation. It is beyond that.
Moksha,
Yeah, which is about the love of God. Attraction to Krishna is what actually takes us towards that. And you talked very importantly about, the tendency to criticize is something which we will be very careful about. That's where we can actually commit many offenses. And you beautifully brought up the point that always be in the sadhu sangha and repentive mood for the mistakes which we commit, which we actually do. You talked about pure devotional service can be taken by taking complete shelter of Krishna. And though Vedas talk about the karma, jnana, and upasana kanda, through the mercy of acharyas, we actually get into the, directly engaging in the devotional service becomes, something which we're very fortunate to get into that. You just referred to Baldev Vidyabhushan's 3 stages of actually the different kinds of devotees. And finally, you said the conclusion is for a pure devotee. You also, there is mention about the pure devotees in various ashramas. And finally, you concluded so that we need to raise our consciousness and make sure we engage in pure devotional service by having the association of devotees and following the instructions of our spiritual master. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for this wonderful class. So I will just open the lines for any questions, reflections, or comments. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sundar Prabhu.
Yes,
Pranam.
Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for very nectarian, after a long time, hearing from a wonderful devotee. We should come quite often, Prabhu.
Okay. We'll see.
Okay, so you talk about sin and offenses, Prabhu. So my kind of problem is that maybe externally I don't have, maybe not practicing, but internally there are a lot of offenses, like which very, very subtly. Sometimes I feel it. What do I do? That's always, going through my mind, this kind of questions.
So let's look at difference between sin and offenses. Okay. Now, sin is, you have the 4 regulative principles, right? For example, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, illicit sex. So anything comes under this is sins. Okay. So this can be eradicated. No problem. Okay. By practice of good devotion. The best part is if by practicing good devotion, you will not commit those sins, right? So that they complement each other. Okay, good. Now, when it comes to offense, there are 10 offenses that we regularly read in the morning. Now, that is to be followed, right? Now, the other offense, especially, for example, in an environment of association of devotees, we generally tend to criticize devotees and fight with them or whatever it may be, right? Some of the offenses are known that you can repent, you can go fall at his feet, you can repent, but many of the offenses we may not know. Now, in the offenses we may not know, there are 2 kinds of offense. One, sometimes we commit offense unknowingly, and sometimes we commit offense knowingly. Now, unknowingly committing offense, right, is okay to some extent because Lord may be merciful based on the level of practice of devotion, that one may escape the dire straits or the results of such reactions. Okay, I'm just using the word may. But offenses committed knowingly are very dangerous, right? So, for example, you take many stories that you can read from Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? So, Prabhu calls them as mad elephant offense. Many stories are there. So, we should be very careful and not commit those offenses because they would disturb our sadhana, they would disturb our taste for Krishna, they would disturb many things in our life. I don't know if there's any cure for offense that are committed knowingly, but one need to develop 3 things. First, awareness about consequences of offense, and they should be very careful. Devotees must do this. Second, devotees must practice a repentive mode. Okay, I should repent. I should not commit this again. They should pray to Krishna. They pray to Dev that please help me so that I don't commit such offense again in the future. Third, which is the most important, is after committing an offense, once you know you're repenting, you go seek pardon from the person whom you committed offense. Right? That person may be junior, he may be someone unimportant, does not matter. You go beg mercy, you pardon it. It is very important to do these three. If we do these three, we have greater chances of completing our devotional life. Otherwise, it'll be tough. That's what I can tell you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for wonderful answer. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You started telling about the Kleshagni, auspiciousness, and all that, no, Prabhu.
Yes,
It's just
ma'am.
that 6 are there, but then the topic changed, Prabhu. What are the other things?
The last two is one is the transcendental loving service that you will get into. Okay. And the last one is in the initial 5 stages, you are getting attracted to Krishna. In the last, Krishna will attracted to you.
Okay.
That's the key thing.
And Kolavich Sridhar takes sannyasana, Prabhu, at the end. He leaves the house and he goes away.
Yeah. So I'm talking about his Grihastha life.
Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, all of you, and anyone can think about this. Just as a matter of realization, right? If you read 5. Canto 5, chapter 8, you'll see Bharat Maharaj in the state of bhava practicing. He remembered the deer and he fell down. How he fell down? He became a deer body. He took a deer body. Okay, good. But if you read the sloka number 29, 28, 29, and 30, somewhere there, you will see in the deer body, he was, awarded the mercy by the Lord. The Lord made him to remember in the deer body about his previous life. So what did the deer do? The deer protected himself, went to Rishi Ashrama and then stayed there. And then it took association of devotees. Then it always remembered the Lord and left its body. Now you can ask the question, if deer remembered the Lord and left the body, why did he not go back to the Lord, but instead took Jada Bharat body? Can anyone think through why that happened?
Usually in animal life, you don't get liberated, they say, Prabhu. You have to be.
Why? We have a story of Gajendra.
But normally they say, those are all exceptions, maybe.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Prabhu, was it like he was very keen to get to the stage of prema? He was repenting and he wanted to come and purify himself before going, not for getting liberation was not his goal. Was it that?
Excellent. Very good point. Okay. You almost got it, Prabhuji. Okay. So, remembering the Lord is the key to prema, but remembering the Lord itself does not fully satisfy, want to get liberated. That is the point. So, for example, let's take Kamsa. Kamsa was always remembering the Lord, but there was no prema. There was only anti, right? So, Kamsa had a different destination. So, now here, Lord wants him to experience prema. Right? In the prema state, no anarthas, no negativity, all completely transcendental, love of Godhead in full state. So, hence, he was, okay. The IMI Prabhu says he's unable to mute, so please unmute devotees so that they can ask questions.
Yeah, let me just check that. Prabhu.
Yeah. So it is important that Lord wants him to practice prema. So hence he gives that opportunity in the body of Jada Bharat and then makes him to practice prema, and that's the whole point. So Antakalecha Mameva Smaran Mukta Kalevaram is important, but it should be blended with prema for it to become successful. If it is anti, but just Antakalecha Mameva won't just help. So, for example, if I keep remembering, okay, a lot of gold, and then die, it doesn't mean I'll be born with a lot of gold in the next life. It is not like that. So, Prabhupada says that a person who kept remembering his factory at the time of death was born as a rat in that factory only, right? So, like that, you see, remembrance of the Lord is important, but it must be blended with prema to see its fullest result. If there is no love for Godhead, but just remembrance, but that won't. So, it's not real prema. That's the point here. Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
Dharma Prabhu, are you able to unmute your line? I've tried it several times to unmute. I mean, anyway, lines are unmuted, but I in fact request you to unmute. Can you try it again, Prabhu? I'll send again.
Or you directly unmute him, Prabhu.
No, I can only request.
Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, it was really informative. It was so much interesting and very nectarian, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Please pray for me so that what I preach, I should practice. And that is a problem.
Definitely, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Please have your mercy on us.
That practice. So please
Yes.
pray that whatever I'm preaching today, I should practice. And, we all should evolve so that we become role models tomorrow to the rest of them, so that upcoming devotees can look at us and then they can grow in spiritual life. That's how we make this entire movement a vibrant movement. So we all have a big role in that.
You will be there always in our prayers, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
We are all blessed to have you as our Siksha Guru, Prabhu.
Right.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
I just had one question. Sorry, Prabhu, let's ask this. We read through this entire thing. So what is that offense which actually King Bharata actually did?
That's not mentioned in.
Yeah, it's not explained
Bhagavata.
anywhere because. So I mean, we have heard in various classes to say this: the lack of association led there. So should we read it as association being more important?
No. Let me see if I can find. It says there are two kinds of, at least the write-up says there are two kinds of karmas, prarabdha karmas, auspicious, inauspicious. So he says that he might have committed inauspicious karma, right, in the previous lives, which manifested later on that caused his absorption onto the compassionate toward the deer. That's what it says. So inauspicious karma could be an unacceptable offense, but it does not mention what offense he did. So we don't know that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Please go to your question, Prabhu. You have time to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna, Sundar, Shyam Prabhu. Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhuji. It's always a pleasure. It's a pleasure to hear from you. Prabhuji, I have one doubt, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, typically we say that one needs Acharya Sambandha to get pure devotional service and also to experience the bliss of prema. So in case of Jadabharata, I think in the previous life he had the Acharya Sambandha. But is it not necessary that every life one should get Acharya Sambandha?
Okay.
How to understand this?
That's a great question. So let's look at the position of Jadabharat, right? Now, the position of Jadabharat was that he did all the practices and then reached almost the state of prema. I would say he was in the bhava state in this previous life. Okay. And for example, if Bharat Maharaj practiced various aspects of devotion service, he must have been practicing under the guidance of some guru, right? Without guru, he would have not practiced. So that's very clear, right? So he had guru, he directed him to Krishna, and then he was able to practice. Now we'll pause here and then go back to Dhruva Maharaj. Now what happened to Dhruva Maharaj? Dhruva Maharaj showed a lot of enthusiasm for Vishnu Bhakti. So even though he was 5 years old, he came alone to the forest. He didn't fear about the animals. He didn't fear about difficulty of life. Nothing. He was determined to get Vishnu so that he can attain his kingdom. His intelligence perverted at this point in time. Who? Dhruva Maharaj. Okay. So when Dhruva started to practice with determination, the Lord as Paramatma, who's a Chaitya Guru, who saw this determination, what did he do? He told Narada Muni, go and help him. Okay. So Narada Muni manifested in that forest there to Dhruva Maharaj, and he told him, first Narada Muni tested him. Okay, Dhruva, are you really serious or not? I want to understand. After he tested, what did Narada Muni do? He actually told him practices of bhakti. How you can do, he told him take some clay from the river nearby and then make a form of the deity and then use the form of the deity and then offer all the oblations to the deity form, practice, do like this. He told all of them. And then what happened? Narada Muni did that messenger exercise. Once Narada Muni finished that, he left off the scene and Lord manifested. Okay? Is the scene clear, Prabhu, with Guru Maharaj? So Krishna, as a Chaitya Guru, saw the enthusiasm. He sent the Guru. The Guru did what he needed to do as a role and sent Dhruva Maharaj back to Krishna. So Dhruva directly saw Prishnigarbha. Right? That's the form of the Lord he saw. He saw Prishnigarbha, and then Lord immediately touched his head with a conch, completely enlightened with knowledge. Now, in this process, even though Dhruva connected with the Lord, the role of Narada Muni as a Guru is not neglected here. He has played his role and he's done. So, Dhruva, Narada Muni, Krishna, all three existed. Okay? So, my Guru Maharaj always says, by mercy of Krishna, one gets a Guru, and by the mercy of Guru, one gets back Krishna. So, this is the meaning. This is the meaning exactly with the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Now, let's come back to Jada Bharat. Bharat Maharaj was very much wanting to practice bhakti. So, his enthusiasm, things like that, he must have been offered a guru who taught him all the regulative principles, Veda Shastra, knowledge. He practiced. Good. But when he reached the Bhava Bhakti, and he's about to reach Prema Bhakti, because of his anarthas, he fell down. It is just a matter of completion. So, the Chaitya Guru is helping him to complete the journey. So, the Chaitya Guru went along with him to Deer. The Chaitya Guru went along with him to Jada Bharat and made him to realize, because the Chaitya Guru tells him about the previous life mistakes, the previous life activities, and then makes him to complete the journey. So there is no way Guru is not missing, is not true. That's the point.
Okay, Prabhuji. So how the Guru is manifesting, the individual soul will know.
Yes.
Maybe in the physical form, in the first life, the second life, third life, it may be through Chaitya Guru as Paramatma, he will remind the instructions and
Probably you take life of Narottam Das Thakura. Narottam Das Thakura wrote so many poems. Even today we're singing. But did Narottam Das ever saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He never saw it. He never saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
So that's a great example you can think of.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yes.
I think this instruction is very, very, what you shared is very, very important, because, at our, spiritual masters they may depart from this world at some point of time. But, I think this instruction.
Yeah, Prabhu, all of us in ISKCON, for us, our primary Shiksha Guru is Srila Prabhupada, correct? Now, have any one of us seen Srila Prabhupada? No. But we still take his instruction, his books, we keep his Archa Vigraha, we perform his worship, and then we go forward. Correct? But who is our connection to to Srila Prabhupada? Our Guru Maharaj.
Yes.
Our Guru Maharaj, who is living now, is making our connection to Prabhupada. Okay, I'll give you another example. So one day, it was His Holiness Jayaprakash Swami Maharaj had come to our residence, and then we were preparing a nice boga for him. Okay, lots of items boga, right? We prepared a lot of them, and then we offered to Guru Maharaj. He asked two questions. The first question is, he said, you're offering all these things to me. What are the ingredients out of this? So we said, Guru Maharaj, we have put dal, tadka, this. We told all those things. He said, no. Is there Krishna Prema in this? That's what he asked. Then we said, yes, Maharaj, there is Krishna Prema in it. Then he said, okay, if there is Krishna Prema, then I will eat. Because if I eat, if I'm pleased, Krishna will be pleased. That's the conclusion he gave. Okay, now you see the role of Guru. He's making us to connect with Krishna, and that's the role he is. He's like a catalyst. Okay. Now then we asked a question to Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, now that you asked all Krishna Prema and everything, now if we follow your rules and regulations, will you take us back home, back to God? Please hear this question. The question is, Guru Maharaj, if we practice all these things properly, will you take us back home, back to Godhead, to Krishna? That's what we asked. What is his answer? His answer is brilliant. He said, no, I'll take you to Srila Prabhupada.
Hari.
He said, my duty is to take you to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada will take you back to Krishna. So who is the one who is connecting between me and Krishna, is Srila Prabhupada. And my current Guru Maharaj, Jayapada Swami Maharaj, is a mediator who is acting to take me to Srila Prabhupada. So now you see, Prabhupada is never existing in front of me, but Prabhupada is the Guru, and Krishna is the Lord, and I am the devotee. This three triangle has continued to happen. So, Vani Seva is important, Vapu Seva is important, but Vani Seva is more important than Vapu Seva. That's what devotees will have to realize. Vani Seva is forever. Vapu Seva is only for a period of time until Guru Maharaj is there in the world. But after he left, his Vani Seva is most important. We have to keep on doing this for our entire life.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It was amazing. Thank you.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
It was a fantastic start, Prabhu. In the morning we had, and now it's continued. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, and actually, Srila Prabhupada demonstrated it. In his entire journey, he demonstrated how he had followed the instruction of his spiritual master, keeping his heart and as a life and soul for him.
Yeah. You go read Leelamrita. How many times he met a spiritual master? Hardly few times. But look what he is today. A Jagat Guru. So that is what we have to learn. We learn this, we practice. You need not show it. And Prabhupada says, even in recent posting I saw, Prabhupada says, it's not that you have to do great things and things like that. Be a simple devotee. Practice night sadhana. Always remember Krishna. You'll go back and back to God. That's what he says. He says, expectation is very less. Why you want to complicate it? He says that much. Bhakti is simple. We have tendency to miss it.
We are complicated.
Yes. And that's my message for today's Bhagavatam class, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I know we just passed the time as well, but it was a very, very wonderful, interesting session of question and answer as well, and for your reflections. Thank you so much. We would like to have you, as everybody requested, we would like to have you more often for Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So please keep coming.
Hare Krishna.
So, yeah,
at your service. At your service.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So we'll just end the session with the Vaishnava Pranam.
Kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Vaishnava Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Ravi Lochana Prabhu. Sorry, Ravi Lochana Prabhu, one devotee is asking where this recording is shared. So it is in our ISKCON South Bangalore YouTube channel. All these recordings are available. I think Kabir Das Prabhu is asking that question.
Yeah, you go to ISKCON South Bangalore YouTube, Prabhu. In YouTube, ISKCON South Bangalore, you type, you will see these recordings there.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
I'll end the session, Prabhu. I'll end the session now. Dandavat Pranams. Tomorrow we just meet. We'll be having a live class from the temple at 8:30. Hare Krishna.